Well, thanks a lot, guys. And Toxic, we expected W to take the victory, fall to onward Anka, but actually something happened. OP managing to run and making the surprise there. And at the end of the day, they're gonna take the victory in the tiebreaker on Sun River. So 4-3 victory for them. They are first in their group, and they'll be playing against the loser of the next match we're gonna showcase.
I mean, I said it before the match started, that this could be a close one. W has not had a strong showing in their first match, and they tend to shake up sometimes, and Burbo just really showing that they can perform. Apart from maybe the last 1 or 2 minutes of the match, we'll just take those ones out of the consideration. But apart from that, they looked really good. They won both their matches actually in tiebreaker. So we'll be seeing if they can transform this tomorrow, because tomorrow they will be facing versus either OPUR or DOPAMINE, as they are advancing in the higher seed to the semifinal.
Yeah, definitely. It's going to come down to the last match of the day, which is either OPPO or Dopamine taking the victory. Talking about that one, we have seen an OPPO team being completely dominant against rejects. Very good today, performing. And from the side of Dopamine, we only know that they had a 4-2 victory against rejects just earlier today. What do you think about this match? Is OPPO actually going to have a very clean sweep like they had against Rejects? They're probably better Dopamine than the APAC team, but are they good enough to actually take the victory against OPPO?
I think it depends on what kind of OPUR shows up for this match. Um, Usually we see OPUR very, very dominant, but they sometimes, just very rarely, have a match where they mess up. So if that happens, I think Dopamine has a chance. However, that's a rare occurrence, and if OPUR shows up anything like that in the first match today, I don't think it's going to be close. I think I predicted 4-1 for OPUR, and I'm going to stick with that prediction. I do think OPUR will be the dominant team, maybe not just in the group, but also in the entire tournament.
Talking about a close match, that's just what we witnessed between W and Burbology, and we should probably take a look at the replays between those two teams as we were starting on Tundra. And Burbology was on defense, W on the attack, and Burbology, they had some sort of trap set with some 60 TPs over G1, but W, they were taking their time. They actually found the weaknesses and tried to go over the north, but good rotations from Burbology overall.
I mean, you said W is taking their time. I think they may have taken too much time here
Mm.
because they traded a lot. You see Hannes and Itox on the top of the map having bled all of their HP. And they do have these concentrated HPs here at the A line,
Yeah.
but that's not going to really help them because even though they can take some advantage back here, they will be out of positions and they will also be out of HP because a push like this is costly. And they don't have HP left here then, and they don't have HP on the other side. And no HP, no bueno.
I think that at the end of the day, W, they were definitely in a better seat against the Babology in that round, but they were lacking time. You could see that they already had to rush down to try to get the kill, but he's going to be picked up by December with the busy on the hill. And W there, they were chasing, rushing to get these kills as it was 1 minute left, but OP Hacker and December, both of them being essentially full HP and making it impossible for W to take the victory on that first round. But the second one probably went better for W. It felt good from the side of Bobology with this push because we had the feeling that they had an overmatch and Barkis took a lot of damage here. But first of all, you'll see that Chase is actually going towards G1, which is a mistake. And on top of it, there's the S-Kong. Yes, he's doing some damage, but he's very slow and he's staying very far from the fight.
Yeah, so Burbo had a great opening here. They got Frugo basically for free. I was informed he even wrote in the in-game chat himself that he's a paid actor. But Burbo just a bit hesitant with some of the players, not really having the coherence of pushing together. And also having the S-Kong on the hill rather than the CS is what
Yeah.
really allows W to just push the play, because as soon as OP Hacker leaves the hill, he doesn't have shots anymore, and he takes so long to get into the match that even though they have 2.8 KHP left here, Floppy and Muscles are free kills, and you're not going to win a 1 versus 5.
Yeah, definitely. If they had the ESCOM committed in the fight and just the CS to get the damage done on the rotation and then joining, it would have gone much better. And then we are jumping on Himmelsdorf. It was 1-1 between those two teams. And we had Babology with a pretty solid defense, actually countering what Dali was going for with some aggressive openings, combining the courtyard control with the coverage and also the one-two lines push. And W, they had no answers against that. But at the end of the day, it was very close.
Yeah, it was very close, and this is the moment where you can start to notice if players have been in these situations a lot of times and if they are comfortable with playing in them.
Hmm.
And Muscles does get the kill here on Barkis, which is really great because it puts Octo in a spot where basically he just has to kill one of the enemy tanks, which will both be one shot, and he's pretty much free. He also can take 3 shots, so that's a very decent scenario to be in. But the nerfs got to him. He lost 2 shots for free, and at that point, it's a 1 versus 2 Euro one shot, and the match is just over.
Yeah, I mean, Mercel has been performing great in this match. A very reliable player, hitting his shots when it's needed. But Octo actually not managing to get the clutch done in the 1v2 situation, making few mistakes. It's very costly for his team because they were 2-1 down. But after, when they were on their attack, they had a pretty interesting play with the 50Bs, straight up rushing the banana and actually having White Rock in a bit of a predicament in this position because I can see Floppy is going to get the full clip done into him and he's actually going to go down. So we expected this trade to go into W's way, but Babology actually holding strong.
I mean, I don't think it was planned that they want to split up the 50Bs like that.
Yeah.
But at that moment, it really just goes to show that as a team, you have to make the best out of even a bad scenario. And
Mm.
they really did it here. They got White Rock for free, basically. And in the end, even though it was close, they managed to take the victory home. P. Hacker just outplaying everyone here, really, as we will see once again later on.
Mm.
So great stuff from them, actually closing a game for once to come back to the 2-2.
I mean, he missed an easy shot on the one shot E4, but afterwards the kill on the mouse was the key to take the victory on that. And then the teams were tied. We were going on Morovanka and W actually going aggressive on their defense and making it work because Babology, you could see that they were very spread and actually possibly expecting a forest push, but their setup was not correct. And W, they had a pretty easy and convenient round there, just managing to take the kills one by one. First of all, I think it was October in the forest of the zero line, and then the tanks for the mid.
Yeah, I mean, the match did get kind of close in the end again,
Mm.
right? But that was mostly due to some penetration issues on the side of W. I think Chase and his mouse had like 5,000 block damage, which is not something you want to have if you're shooting on a mouse at 100 meters distance. But W did manage to close it in the end and got up to a 3-2.
Yeah, and it's where it became pretty funny because we expected W to take the victory on that run because honestly they played properly. I'd say you can see that the other push is coming from their side of the base one. In return, Burbology once again I tend to disagree with this. I've mentioned it in the last match on Warvanka. The way to play on this map when you go aggressive for the middle and the forest, when you establish it and the enemy team is not capping anymore, you have to come back over the K line to actually cover those tanks because pushing over like W did was the only play they had, and they managed to make it work because those tanks have simply no cover. Flop is gonna drop, the S-Conk is gonna drop, and Babology, yes, they managed to chase Panuka in the CS and take him out, but at what cost? What are they gaining out of it?
I mean, I feel like teams may just have an allergy to the K line. It's the third time
Ooh.
today that we saw the K line not being utilized. But then again, OP Hacker, just solo carrying the match here, able to run from these mouses and bring it to a tiebreaker. Where actually, if you look at the HP, even though they managed to, get the K0 position, it doesn't look too great for W.
Yeah, I mean, Babology, they're wanting down, but position wise, they're making the great rotation to actually take the full control of the mid, taking down Frugo on the way. And you could see W was fully committed over that base one. So Frugo had almost no cover, just that CS of the mid, no tanks left at D2 whatsoever. And you could see after a few minutes, Biology full control, W completely surrounded. They were defending and they were just taking down the tanks remaining from the side of W. Good stuff from them.
Yeah, great stuff from Burble, showing some nerve here after very, very narrowly not losing the round earlier. They managed to come back and actually win the whole match. Uh, and they did even finally manage to close some games. So if they can combine, this early game strength that they showed in the first few matches with the ability to actually close matches, which they showed in the last few matches, they're going to be a great team to look out for tomorrow. But then again, you will have to transfer this versus other teams as well. And I feel like a team like OPUR doesn't make as many mistakes
Mm.
as maybe W does. So W Burbology definitely has to step up their game.
And you can see that W, they have some potential, they have great players, but they're probably lacking that experience OPUR has. OPUR has been performing and having so much grand finals played and even won in the past in the Wood 7 tournaments. But anyway, Toxic. I think now it's probably time for the last match of the day. We're talking about OPUR. This is their last challenge for today. Are they capable of having a clean sweep against Dopamine? Is Dopamine in return capable of surprising us and taking some runs or even the win? We're gonna find out shortly, but just before that, we're gonna go back to the cast's desk. Kihand, Elfish, and Daki, please take it away.
To take it as a compliment. I tell you what.
You
Look,
sure?
at this point, well, you tell me. Look, OPA and Dopamine. That's where we're at this point in the day. It's been a long day, you know. It's been a long night for some of us, long morning for others, depending on which side of the fence you're sitting on. What do you think, though, Daki? I mean, are we likely to have a quick match here? Because everything I'm hearing is kind of leaning me towards. Everyone seems to be saying, yeah, this one. We're probably leaning towards OPA pretty heavily.
If OPUR wins, they play W, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I think we might see some experimental strategies potentially.
All right. So it might not be a fast game.
Yeah, I don't know. It depends on OPUR. It depends on their mindset. Depends on if they like really don't care and just go for it. And we're like, if we play against W, we play against W. We don't care.
Mm.
It honestly depends entirely on both teams' mindset. I hope that they're both wanting to win as badly as possible to prove how good they are. But yeah, first time we're seeing Dopa today. You saw them during the night. It's today the
Yep.
first time we're seeing them, though. Next is the team captain there. An all around very individually skilled lineup. They're like a lot of really, really good players. So it really depends on how the games go. And compared to OPUR, I think OPUR still has better individual skill. That only gets you so far, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's always a combination at the end of the day of both that individual skill and the tactics.
Well, yeah. I mean, the one thing that I'm kind of hanging up on right now is like, okay, if we go back and look at the previous results from these two teams, OPUR 4-0 rejects. Fair enough. Pretty much straightforward, easy game for them. Didn't look like anything was really much of a contest at all. Rejects actually take 2 rounds off of Dopamine. One on Himmelsdorf, one on Sand River. So I don't know. I mean, I feel like there might be something there. And that was also after Dopamine was off to a 3-0 lead in that matchup. So, like, that could have also been a 4-0, but it ended up being a 4-2. Maybe I'm reading into it a little bit too much. Maybe I'm not. We've got Mines, Tundra, Muro. So, none of those maps that really seem to be a little bit of an issue for Dopamine earlier on today against Rejects, but we'll see. OPUR starting us off on Mines. What I do like about Mines is it can often be a bit of a quicker map. You see some hill rushes. You see lots of tanks getting finished off pretty quick at the start of the round. But will it be any different here today? Let's have a look at the predictions. Everyone's gone the way of OPUR. You guys have all gone 4-1. I've gone 4-2.
I mean, we're giving Dopa some credit, right?
Yep.
Which is fine. It's just I'm curious to see how OPUR and Dopa approach this game. Like, how serious are they playing?
Yeah, I guess that's the question mark, isn't it? Well, we're starting off on the US server for the first 3 rounds, and then we'll be over to Europe for the remaining 3. If we need a tiebreaker, we go to steps. So that is another tantalizing prospect. We haven't seen any steps today. Haven't seen any mines either. So I'm kind of looking forward
And
to
no
that.
Cliff, but you know.
Well, yeah. Cliff at least got played earlier in the APAC NA matches with Bricked and Burbology played Cliff. But yeah, apart from that, we haven't really seen it. It's weird, isn't it? Like, there's been quite a heavy reliance on Tundra, Muro, Himmels. Seems to have been like kind of the core of the map pool.
Yeah, Himmels is usually the most played one. Cliff is one of those maps where initials are super, super, super important. And that's why a lot of teams don't want to do it.
Okay, well, let's jump into the swing of things. Dopamine and OPUR. And wow, a lot of BZ75s there for OPUR. Couple of mouse, 60 TP. It looks like a lineup to me that wants to fight for the hill.
I like OPUR's lineup. I mean, if the 4 BCs, a double mouse, and 63, that's fast. That's really fast.
Yep.
But Dopa is not slow either. I mean, double E5, double I7. But it does show, like, when you look at this lineup from Dopa, you immediately know that they're not going to be, how to say, challenging the hill. The mouse and E4, they don't do it.
And in fact, actually, OPUR have called that as well. Like, you can see that they're just sending Ketsai up the hill. Like, it's not even as if they're fully committing all 4 of those BZ75s. They're expecting to have a fight on the hill. They're kind of aware of this like handshake agreement that's almost now developing between these 2 teams.
And Blur gets a shot there on Ketsai. Ketsai does not retaliate. And yeah, they immediately know that they're not going to go on the hill. They're going straight around the hill, actually. Like, no delay whatsoever. So pretty confident there from OPUR. They're like, okay, they will not challenge the hill. It's brave, though, because sometimes some teams like to, you know, bait with that, but not OPUR. They're going to go straight around the hill with T-Sec leading the charge. Are they all going to activate the rockets behind him? It would be something to see, though. Let's see how fast the 60 DP can go when it has 3 sets of rockets in a...
I'm ready.
Yeah, oh no. Why did we switch?
It's like the NASA program.
Yeah.
Here we go. He looks like he's going pretty quick, but he's actually peeled off. And so it'll be the BZ75s right around the corner, straight into the mouse, which is maybe not the target that you necessarily would want to be taking shots into. And so far, I'm not super sold on this from OPUR. I don't think this has quite gone to plan. Rexar is down very low indeed. BZ75s are kind of stuck in an awkward position. And not a huge amount of damage going into Dopamine just yet. Blur now in that IS-4 is starting to take a pretty big chunk of damage. He's really out in no man's land. Where are the rest of the shots starting to come through from Dopamine, though? There's a big rotation still to be had.
Good shot there from Spirit.
But
as
OPUR,
well.
I mean, OPUR have lost so much HP for this push, though.
Yeah, but they do get Blur, though. It's the first step on the program. Now they need to find PM in that mouse who's trying to 1v1 T-Sec there. So they need to find that mouse. Gotrix is going to come around the outside even to deal with that, to help his buddy T-Sec. But Dopa has done a really good job at doing damage, right?
Yeah, that's another good shot into Ketsai as well. I mean, like, yeah, you've got a 2-tank advantage right now, but you're down a fairly significant amount of HP, and you've got 2... Well, it depends on who's shooting, right? But you've got 2 tanks that are about down to a 1-shot. So you do need to be pretty careful with how you're juggling the HP here. Piotrix in the BZ75 sends a shot straight into the rock. Not ideal. And again, another shot does go by the wayside. So a lot of bleed happening here for OPUR, and I don't know if they can dig themselves out of this hole, to be honest with you, Daki.
The C5 is a very annoying tank because look at where the cupola is. It's on the left side. It's actually in the good position here to play from. So that leaves the lower hull. DJ there trying to really survive on that 78 HP. He's had Nexus shoot at him in the entire game there from 1-2 line. Of course, the I7 lacks penetration from distance. But yeah, I don't really see it either for OPUR. I don't really see it on how they come back into this one. I mean, Ketsai is even leaving the hill now. We're watching the back, and Nexus does finally find DJ. So a kill going the way of Dopa, which is, you're going to be very happy about that.
Yeah, I mean the issue is obviously that OPUR is on the attack, right? If they're on the defense and they have 7-on-5, and yeah, they might have a bit of a health disadvantage, I think you can play around that a little bit easier. But when you're on the attack and you're the one that has to be proactive and kind of trying to push the issue, you often obviously have to open yourself up to taking some damage in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, for OPUR, it just
And
looks like they're waiting for Katsai though.
yeah, but how much of a difference does that really make, right? Like, even he is not super healthy. And in fact, Dopamine is going to try and take matters into their own hands. And fair enough at this point, right? They can pretty much just win.
They're allowed to do
Pushes
this.
forward in that E5.
They have
Yeah.
that HP, right? Panzer Fury, they're trying to extend the length of the battle, but that's not going to be happening. I mean, they're running on fumes at this point. 2000 HP left. Piotrik's pushing in as well. Mine's attack is a very, 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 very hard nut to crack for most teams, especially against a team that kind of know what they were doing. And Dopa had a fairly standard setup, but it does work for them.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, it seemed like OPUR sort of knew what circumstances they were getting themselves into, right? You're going to be expecting a mouse to be sitting underneath that hill. You're going to be expecting crossfire shots to come through from the 1-2 line and also from like the J6-7 position. It was, as you say, all very standard. OPUR was well aware of it. They tried to sort of crack the nut, but I just think the initial entry wasn't exactly what they needed it to be with those BZ-75s. It didn't really seem like the shots hit their mark, or if they
It all took a little while.
did. Yeah, it wasn't maybe onto the tanks that they needed. Like, there was one shot that I think that went into the IS-4 and one that went into the mouse, and maybe one that went a bit missing. But at the end of the day, Dopamine up 1-0. OPUR unable to break open the attacking side of mines.
Yeah, unable to do so, and Dopa is going to be very happy. They get to start it off with a 1-round win. Of course, it is Mine's defense. I don't know what the statistics are, but it's far beyond 50%. Between good teams, it's normally should be around 75-25. We've seen teams win on the attack, but it's usually when the defense does something really weird that gives an opening to the attacker. No such thing here. Standard setup from Dopa. It works. The mouse under the hill, the IS-4 on the rock. It takes a while to kill the IS-4. You don't trade that well for it. Then you got to kill the mouse. And by the time you've done that, you can see Nexus on 1-2 line. It really shuts down that rock where the IS-4 is sitting. And it's just a question if it's really worth to push on that rock with double mouse, because you saw they both lost most of their HP for that trade. But they do need to kill the guy at the rock, so it's not that easy for the boys of OPUR to really cover all the angles. But they get to defend now, though.
Yeah, I suppose that's the one takeaway. Take a look at the damage charts here, and I mean, to be expected pretty much across the board there for Dopamine. It's very good stuff, very solid numbers. Everyone kind of contributing, which is what you want to be seeing. You don't really want to be seeing anyone lagging behind too drastically, but everyone was able to have some kind of an input. And here's where things might start to unravel a little bit, right? A couple of shots for the BZ-75, only one pen. And that's maybe where that initial issue does start to come in. Like we were talking about, the initial entry, right? If you're going to make that kind of a push, you kind of need it to be pretty explosive with your first set of shots to kind of keep it in play. But ultimately, it wasn't really the case. And yeah, look, it's not a great gun, but
it really isn't.
Sometimes you got to make do with what you've got, right?
Yeah, well, sometimes it don't work out that way. I understand BZ pen ratios. Shooting at a mouse on the move is laughable.
Well, I mean, what are you going to do, right? You're just going to pray.
Yeah, it's like if I hit it, great. If I don't, well, it's kind of what I was expected. Want to see though what Dopa brings on their attack now. You know, we saw OPUR try something, it didn't work out. Dopa, of course, should be pretty ready for this as well. I mean, he should be ready to play any map in the tournament, to be honest.
Yep. Well, it's not like the map pool changes all that much, right? You know, like at the end of the day, how long have people been playing mines in the 7v7 format? How long have people been playing Himmelsdorf, etc.? Right, these maps have been around for, like, dare I say, a decade at this point.
Yeah. You'll still see teams completely permaban some maps, though.
Yeah, I think that's fair enough, right?
Sure.
But the fact of the matter is that any player who is playing in this game that has had any kind of experience in any kind of competitive format will have played on pretty much every single one of these maps in some way, shape, or form.
For sure, 100%. I thought you were gonna drop a hot take.
No, yeah. I mean, in a competitive environment as well, like not even just in pubs, because obviously the game's super different in competitive to pubs. But no, I don't have hot takes, mate. Apart from the fact that APAC's like probably the best region, but
That's not a hot take. That's a dumb take.
I think that we call it copium, right? If we want to be nice and respectful to our
Yeah,
co-casters,
well,
but
if I said that, I would want you to call me an idiot. All right,
okay.
be honest with me. I like it rough.
Well, so far it has been a little bit rough for OPUR, and we did have our predictions that were leaning in that direction. So at this point, you're kind of hoping for a clean sweep from them, make it a 4-1. If you want to get that final prediction of the night correct, very fast lineup from DOPAMINE. Look at this, 5 CS63. So they are going to be blitzing around the map.
They are 3 towards the hill, 2 towards 1-2. They want to punish potentially the I7 crossing over of Ketzai. Let's see if they can find it. A few shots coming out there. Actually, the other CS is on the hill also stopping to him at Ketzai. But Ketzai is a veteran, and he's not going to continue going. He's just going to stop where you see him right now, and somewhere in between. But since the rework, there's a hold-on area there, so he's just chilling. He will not move. He'll just wait until he gets D-spot, and then at some point actually move over towards the island. But I like the idea, though, from the boys from Dopa. I like the idea. There could have been a lot of punish coming out of that. They get some, not the greatest amount, I'd say.
Yeah, but they've got good map control here as well, having taken control of the hill. It is a small map, to be fair, so how impactful is the map control itself? To look for these angles. But yeah, I'm inclined to say that I'm quite hopeful that this actually works out for DOPAMINE, because I think it's if it does work, it's like a fun game. Do you know what I mean? CS63s, lots of them. It's going to be exciting to watch if they can make this work.
It's looking really rough for them, though.
So far, it's not.
I mean, there's this initial punishment that we had from Dopa towards OPUR, and afterwards it's all just Dopa taking hits. You know, the CS is leaving 1-2, taking hits, the CS is on the hill, taking hits, and now they're left in this scenario there. Okay, the 1-2 pressure didn't really work. What is next? What is our fallback plan?
I'm not sure that there really is, you know, like, what are you going to do with your CSs? Run down the 8-9 line? Like, I don't see that working. Spirit just gets blown up.
I'll play
Apparently, 1 CS is better than 5.
it. Yeah, we should get 1 CS equals 5 dopamine CSs. You said that, not me. That's a hot take.
Hey, is what it is. Also, bring back the Mines boost. There, that's a hot take. How about that one for you?
I'd like that, but yeah. They took away my climbs. Now the CS is marching down the 8 line, though. Well, 9 line, on road to.
Well, nowhere. This is what I was saying. It's like, okay, what is your option? There aren't that many avenues of attack on Mines. You can push mid, you can push the left side, or you can push the right side. They decided to push the right side. They pushed the 8-9 line, but you're always going to have tanks set up to deal with that. This E5 obviously deletes the first CS63, and now what do these two CS63s do? Once you get to that rock, you can't push forward, because if you do, you're pushing into a big crossfire. You can't push backwards, because then you have to cross again and take even more damage for free. So yeah, you try to push, you try to take down this E5, but ultimately you aren't really in a winning position here as DOPAMINE in these two CS63s, and they are finding that out pretty quickly. They kind of ran out of options. They had to make something happen. They had to try to do something. They did try to do something. It didn't work. That's the end of story.
At least they tried something. If anything, you can look at this
I
match
respect it.
as a training match, you know? A better training, because it really matters. I mean, really matters, but you know what I mean.
Match practice.
Yeah, match practice. So they tried something, and I think they realized as well that, okay, we can punish the I7 crossing, but we can't do much more than that, because he can just stop. So that doesn't work. So you have to think of something else. In theory, it sounds great. You know, if the I7 is not very intelligent, he keeps going, he gets stabbed from the hill times 3, he's basically dead. In reality, less so.
Well, it's just Nexus. What's he up to? Just chilling at the back of the map.
It's the end game damage, mate. Eco frags.
Gotta get those stats going.
Pushing Chris DPG in tournament. Yeah, I think Ketsa is gonna arrive here in a second to shut down the deal, and mine's kind of going in a very expected way.
Yeah, I think 1-1's quite predictable on mines, and fairly convincing 1-1 as well. Like, it's not even as if either of those rounds were really very
No,
close.
no,
It was
no.
pretty much the attacking side, like, trying to do something, but not really being able to get anything done. That's why I said, like, bring back the climb. That gave a lot of room for the attackers to work. Might have been a bit OP, but hey, at least you had an avenue of attack that was actually reliable.
No, bro. If I could do it, I put back the boost immediately. I had a lot of fun on there.
Yeah. Well, here is a fairly sad story for Dopamine, actually. A couple of the CSs don't even get into the thousands. But it's to be expected, I suppose, when you bring a lineup like that. If you don't make the initial fight work, then
I think they were really
probably you're up the creek without a paddle.
I think they were really counting on doing a lot more damage on Ketsa in the beginning. They didn't get that because he stopped. Smart. Sometimes the best thing is to stop. And after that, it was pretty easy cruising. I mean, you saw the CSs get punished left, right, and center for leaving the positions. And then even more so when, I mean, Rishak somehow owns Spirit in the 1v1. The Spirit got a little bit greedy, tried to re-peek into that.
Yeah.
Wouldn't do it myself, but okay, I definitely would re-peek, but we don't talk about that.
Well, we're moving on to Tundra, which is Dopamine's pick. So I guess going 1-1 on your opponent's map is not a bad shout when you do move into your own map pick for map 2 and 3. And I think they can feel reasonably confident after the first game there on Mines. They look pretty good in it. It seems like they can compete in this series. Just wonder if, is it going to be one of those situations where the same as last game, we were like, this, we expect one team to win, but just sort of ends up being like 1-1, 1-1, 1-1. Oh, we're at the tiebreaker. Like, I've been there. I've done that a lot of the, like, I feel like Water Tanks especially is one of those games that almost lends itself to going to tiebreakers a lot more than others do.
Sure. Because usually you expect defense wins. Because it's shooting wise, take positions and you shoot. However, between these two, I don't think we're going to get there.
Yeah.
One way or another, I don't think we're going to get to tiebreaker. Just that gut feeling. Tundra might be the difference maker for that. I've seen some Dopamine Tundra. I was not too impressed.
Okay. Well, they did manage to 2-0 rejects on Tundra earlier this morning. I don't know if that fills you with much confidence.
Doesn't really change my opinion. I don't know if that's mean,
I'm not
but
surprised. Yeah. Well, I guess that'll be the big talking point heading into our second map. This is the final series of the day. But for those of you that are, maybe you've just tuned in and you want to see more, well, you can come back tomorrow. It's going to be another 3 games tomorrow. All of them, I believe, are best of 9s. So that's a little bit of a shake-up.
Yeah, best of 9 is can be a long match.
Oh, it can be. Man, I don't know how we used to get through 4 best of 9s in a day.
Easily.
No.
Just build different, mate.
Guess so. Well, let's see who's built different on Tundra as we do head into map 2. Lots of VZ55s coming out here for OPUR. Minotaur as well.
Pretty similar to what they played before. If not exactly the same. Dopa, though, has relatively mobile lineup as well. The double 277, IS7, double S-Fuel, CS, 60p. They're not really going to be locked in one place. But I don't think there's really a difference in OPUR's lineup from what they had before. So going for those VZs again, you may as well recycle at this point.
All right, let's have a look and see how this one does play out. 2 VZ55s toward the north side, 2 towards the south side for OPUR, or at least in the middle. They stop, they don't continue to go south, but speaking of, Dopamine very much headed in that direction, and it's quite evident that the 2 flag is where their interest lies.
Yeah, especially because they have 5 tanks going there right now. I mean, a lot of them have been spotted yet, but I think Tisek and Piotrik's are already pretty aware. They're already starting to move. Good shot there though from Orchek, and that Mino taps that 277 once, just holding the angle. I don't think Dark Ninja and Paddington are going to be finding too much against that Minotauro in hold down unless they're able to pixel snipe the Cupola. Let's be realistic that it's 1 out of every maybe 10 shells. You don't see it happening.
Doesn't seem like an even trade. So instead he wins the race for Dopamine. Haven't opted to push too hard onto that 2 flag. Now the IS-7 does cross. It's Nexus who will start the cap pressure. Only 1 tank on the cap, though, isn't really going to cause too many problems for OPUR, you'd think.
Well, not at this moment in time, but I like what Dopa is doing, though. They're, putting that 1 man in the cap, and that's really just it. Everybody else is just covering him. It's not like an overcommitment. They want OPUR to make a reaction based upon this, punish it hard, and make a move after. See that by the positions that they're currently holding, they're still pretty spread across the map. Good shot there then from Paddington onto Mino actually connecting. You might actually see Piotr try to cross over here. Katsai with a 60p. Starting to move up as well, together with Panzer Fury. Tisek in following them as well.
Well, off we go. Piotrix indeed will try to cross. Has only taken 1 shot worth of damage in that. Meanwhile, he'll be able to look for some resets if he needs to, but looks like the rest of that push coming through from OPUR might be more than enough for that job. Nexus is now in a bit of a spot of bother. He's starting to get encroached upon by multiple members. Needs some help from his teammates. Is starting to get it, but trades are looking really damn good right now for OPUR. Dark Ninja down to a 1 shot. He is a stone's throw away from death, and eventually will get finished off by Orchek. Nexus on the run now as well in that IS-7, but he may well get chased down by Rexar, who does have more than enough damage in that clip to finish him off. Ketsai does not hit the shot in the 60 TP, so it will require both the VZ55 shells, but end of the day, OPUR 2 tank advantage. HP this time, well and truly favoring them. Should not be a way back into this one for Dopamine.
Yeah, no, really, and it's really weird that Dark Ninja is the one to fall first there, if you think about it. Like, he was in a pretty safe position, and he's the one to fall first, and Nexus gets pushed upon is understandable. The cover fire really actually wasn't there at the end of the day. Very simple under and 1-line move, shutting down numerous tanks of Dopamine. Bit an oversight in their offense. They shouldn't really be getting caught by that, and as a result, though, they're within fighting distance, but that is not going to get smaller anytime soon. I mean, Spirit may find DJ here in the CS63, but that is not going to be enough to bring his team back into this one. As Dopamine on Tundra attack had an idea, had a thought, but the execution a little lackluster.
Yeah, indeed. Sometimes it do be like that. Just a matter of time before Spirit is finished off. Damage Engine as well should make it easy to chase him down. But I think you're at that point in the game where there's no real point in running anymore. OPUR are going to be taking the lead. It'll be a 2-1. So a couple of rounds in a row for them now. Starting to mount a bit of that pressure onto Dopamine. Not to mention defensive side win on Tundra. Always a nice pickup. Piotrix has an interesting way of celebrating the win. But yeah, I mean, are we on the cards for a 3-1 now, right? They're moving on to the attacking side of Tundra. You're feeling good.
We're really on the lookout for a possible 3-1 coming out of Tundra. I thought the idea
Keep your
behind
eyes
the
open.
attack was interesting, but the punishment wasn't there.
Yeah, I mean, look, to me, it looked like Dopamine kind of got the situation that they wanted, right? They get the IS-7 on the cap. They get OPUR having to obviously push in to try to get the resets. Where are they going to try to get the resets from? Probably through the river.
Yeah, but there was just no punishment. Katsai and I don't remember who it was.
Well, that's it.
Katsai and
That's the
Piotrix,
issue.
I think. Yeah, but like, how does Dark to 0 in this game? He was in a way safer position, but he was the first one to fall. That is already like a question. But the OPUR move, I mean, if you and I can predict it, then so can Dopamine. There should have been a lot, like a reaction. Okay, once they started repushing the river, we do this and we shut it down. There was no such thing. Nexus just had nowhere to go anymore. He goes left, he drives into a VZ and a Mino, and he dies. If he goes right, he drives into a 60 TP and a VZ, and he dies. So for Dopa, the crossfire angles, the reaction, it wasn't there. Like the initial move was there, and I think it was all right. But the follow up, there has to be a follow up.
Unfortunately, there was not.
Yeah, that is an issue.
So I think we're at the point now where we're actually wondering what's the follow-up going to be here from OPUR, right? Because the follow-up for them, if they can win this, is 3 rounds in a row. Sure, they stumbled a little bit on the attacking side of Mainz, but that's kind of to be expected. So you can push that by the wayside. You win 3 in a row. You're on match point. You know, you're on your way to a 4-1. Like, and it's kind of weird to be saying that at a 2-1 scoreline, but kind of feels like that's
natural progression.
Right?
That's kind of what the expected conclusion is. But yeah, I think Rejects would have won that Mainz defense. You know, I think they would have also won that.
You reckon?
Yeah.
You're a fan of APAC?
Yeah, big fan.
I respect it.
Yeah,
I respect it. I think APAC's pretty good too.
Yeah, not the best, but they're up there.
Yeah, but
they're
pretty good.
They're definitely in the top 5 of World of Tanks regions.
Out of 3.
I mean, it depends on which ones you include.
Depends which ones you ask. Yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah, depends on how, like, you know, if you start separating.
How generous
things.
are you being? Yeah.
I mean, top 5 is top 5, right?
Top 5's top 5. Top 5's pretty good.
Yeah.
Daki, I reckon you're probably a top 5 caster on this broadcast as well. So there you go.
Thanks. I appreciate it. I reckon you're somewhere in that range as well.
Yeah.
Right behind me.
We're pretty good.
Right behind
pretty
me.
good.
Yeah, actually.
Actually, we might be top 5 casters in World of Tanks in the world, to be honest, at this point.
Even Kihan would make it into the top 5.
He's pretty good. You know, if you're in the top 5, you're pretty good as far as I'm concerned.
It's huge.
So
we all miss him so dearly. I mean, not me, not him, but other people miss him dearly. I mean, Insane definitely missed him because he already introduced you as Kihan. That's how much he misses Kihan. It's unbelievable.
I must not be living up to the hype. Or maybe I am living up to the hype. Maybe I'm just like that good.
Maybe it's just so natural that he thinks you're Kihan because it's so used to it.
Wait, where is Kihan from? What accents he got? German.
Yeah.
See, I'm basically the same guy.
Yeah, you sound 100% the same. You also make bad map guides by any chance for all the things?
No, I haven't got the time actually for that.
Thank God.
Too busy.
Thank God. We already have Kihan doing them. It's fine. We don't need more.
Right.
We will see. I do agree. What do we get after Tundra? What do we get after Tundra?
Proc, I believe. Top of my head. No, Muro.
Muro.
Proc was the ban.
Hey, who's who's attacking the Muro?
OPUR.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
3-1.
4-1.
3-1. 4-1. Books close. We go tomorrow. That is.
Oh, you know what's happening right now?
They're switching service.
We're switching service.
Yeah, that's why people are listening to us having the bands made. We're gonna go.
We go into podcast mode.
Yeah, we're going to Bondi Beach later.
Guys, what I want to know, if you're watching, if Daki and I started a podcast, it could be about anything. What would it be about? It doesn't have to be about World of Tanks. What would you want the podcast to be about? Would you listen to it? That's what I want to hear from the people.
What would we talk about?
I don't know. Anything, man. What's your favorite, like, what do you like to do that's not World of Tanks, you know? Because I feel like the only thing I really know about you is World of Tanks.
Yeah, I like to play World of Tanks. Is there a problem with that?
Wow.
I eat, sleep, play World of Tanks, repeat.
Okay.
True World
What's
of
your
Tanks gamer.
beard care routine? You got a beard care routine? Do you like use beard oil? Or
Bro, I use some beard oil and then I go to my Turkish barber and I get him to give me a massage, you know?
That's good. I still don't do the beard, man. I got the...
Dude, if you want to, I can
man.
just cut it off and just, like, you stick it on and you pretend. I mean,
yeah.
I mean...
I think they did that in Jackass one time.
We could probably make that work, though. If you wanted to. I mean... I can't imagine you with a beard now. I could imagine you with a goatee, though. You know, like
I could send you a picture after. Because I did... Okay, so obviously when, you know, we were during COVID, right? Like, what am I going to do? I'm just going to grow a beard. I grew my hair out, grew a beard out. Looked pretty bad, but, you know, no one had to see it.
At least you're very honest about it. I like it.
Yeah. So well, why do you think I keep the clean-shaven look, right? Because I think that's where I look better. If I looked better in the beard, you'd see me in the beard. So obviously, process of elimination, the beard did not look very, very good. Yeah, but
this is an
fun.
educated man.
Yeah,
just like Ian.
Actually, I do have a bachelor's degree in film, so yeah, I would like to consider myself a bit of an
Wait, you want to
intellectual.
make a
Thank you very
homemade
much.
movie together?
Okay.
About
Let's
World
talk
of
about World of
Tanks.
Tanks again.
About World of
Yeah.
Dude, why do you have to take it in such a bad way? Whenever I say something in this, people always take it in the worst possible way. I don't know why. Is it me? Am I the problem?
You know, yeah, you are the problem. Actually, that's the thing. We all know you, and you are the problem.
You know, I'll
So-
take that. It's fine. I don't mind being the problem. You could be the solution, though.
I could be, absolutely. I could probably save you, but I won't. Okay, I've got better things to do, like cast World of Tanks
True. On Tundra.
on Tundra. Tundra? Tundra.
Tundra. It's potato,
Mate,
potato.
If you're going to cast with me, you have to speak Australian. I don't understand any other
Australian.
language.
Oh my god. You, in some ways, you remind me a lot for like Uber.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Well, that's funny that he's also Australian.
and
Actually, we used to cast together. Do you know that?
Yeah, I think I remember. Yeah, unbelievable.
Yeah. Good times. What a throwback.
He won't get old. He has kids now. 2.
A kid.
No, 2.
Who?
2. Yeah,
No,
recently.
really?
Last
Oh.
few months.
I'm not keeping up with it, apparently.
Oh my! Is his picture that it's posted real?
Yes, it is.
Bro, you'd fit right in with a Harley Davidson club, you know. But
Absolutely.
you'd have to gain some weight, though. I like it,
That's
though.
not
I
so
like
easy.
it.
It's not so easy for me.
I like
Not
it.
so easy for me. Anyway, look, let's get back to the tanks. Yeah, you can show it on stream if you want. I don't mind. Someone can rustle that up for tomorrow. Anyway, dopamine. Lots of 60 TPs. They love the 60 TPs. BZ75, E5 didn't catch the rest. We're into the game. That's fine. 60 TPs on the other side as well for OPUR, who are on the attack.
What team's
And off we
pretty
go.
heavy? By margin more, though. Really, a lot of VZs from Porto. I still don't know if I'm like really a fan. Like the VZ in the 7v7 format, I feel like it struggles a lot because of that low DPM. Doesn't have that much HP, you know. I don't know if I'm convinced about it personally.
Yeah, I think it's the kind of tank that when it works, it looks really good. But when it doesn't work, you're kind of just like, well, probably would have preferred like a Super Conk or a 277 or an IS7 or something, you know?
Yeah,
Like, it's,
if the gun
if
doesn't
you
work.
can use it really well, like, and if you blow up a tank or two, you're like, wow, that was sick. But otherwise, it's just like, like, it's kind of like, it's okay, but it doesn't really excel at anything.
I mean, it worked for them against rejects because they were able to find those isolated tanks. That does mean you have to find somebody that's isolated and be able to pick them up, which is not always that easy because good teams will always make sure that they're, or when I say great teams always make sure that they have their lines of crossfire, that they're able to support each other to where you can't just find somebody that's like left by himself and pick him off with 2 VZs.
Buddy system, yeah?
Yeah, we saw that when the double bat shots from the APAC teams tried to push, you know.
Yeah, well, that's not the kind of buddy system that we were looking for, actually.
I mean, it's still better to die with a friend than alone, I guess.
True. Wouldn't want to be lonely. All right. Well, I mean, not a whole lot has actually happened so far in the first couple of minutes of this game.
Stop reminding us of dark times, Jesus. Spirits pushes up, that is... Why?
Oh.
I have one question. Why?
Well, he decided he wanted to die alone. Actually, you know,
There's just no need for that.
in keeping with our conversation about dying with a friend, he doesn't even have a friend there. So
I mean, Blur just watched it. I just don't understand
Yeah.
what he would gain from going there at this moment in time. He knows they're in the south. Mino is not even a good tank on that rock because of that non-fully traversable turret, you know? It makes it a bit awkward to play. If somebody comes on your other side, you have to like back off, then turn around. You know what I mean? Like, it's not really the kind of tank that plays well there anyways. But OPUR here, I talked about isolated tanks that the VZs can bounce upon. Currently, Dark Ninja seems very lonely.
Yeah. And with 3 VZ55s headed in his direction, he might not be long for this world, although he may be able to survive depending on the rolls. Doesn't look too good in that department, although in the end, 133 HP right on the back there. So, hey, I mean, this is close, but not good enough just yet from OPUR. In the end, the IS-7 snakes a shot through. Dark is down, and that is the first tank out of the fight for DOPAMINE. Arguably, Spirit is kind of out of the fight as well, but at least he's still a gun in the game. Another dump over the VZ55s. This is where they really do their best work, isn't it, right? We were talking about it. What's the win condition for the VZ55? It's wolf packing around, isolating tanks, and when it looks good, it looks pretty good. And this is looking quite nice for OPUR at the moment.
I mean, it's disgusting when you get those triple VZs to actually unload onto one tank. It's hit or miss if they're gonna, 3-clip him, right? On Dark, it wasn't the case, but now those VZs start to be pretty good, Like, they're just clipping and clipping and clipping, and then they are tremendous tanks that deal huge amounts of damage if they're able to get the time to do so. And I said they wouldn't find isolated tanks, but they did at one point find that singular guy. The spot was late, nobody to really cover Dark, and got bounced upon by the VZs. They already were down a Mino at that point, basically, as well, because Spirit made a misplay. And yeah, it's just a snowball effect, right?
Well, I mean, the thing is, it gets easier to find those isolated tanks. Once you've isolated one, it means that the rest of the tanks are, well, probably... they've got less friends, right? And then you take 2 out of the picture. Then now there's even a bigger hole in the defense and a bigger hole in the defense. And as you say, it snowballs from there. So fighting that first one and getting that first one cleanly is actually the kind of the key if you're going to go for that kind of a play. And obviously, OPUR, they did that and they had that in spades. And now the scoreline is 3-2-1. And that is bad news for DOPAMINE, who will be moving into Muro and starting on the defense next. So, yeah, I mean, 4-1. The possibility is definitely there for that one to be on the cards right here. A rough start to the series for OPUR, but apart from that, it's been quite a clean series so far.
I'm really, kudos to OPUR. They're taking it very serious by the looks of things. Playing it like they normally would. They finding the engagements they need. They realized the gap in the defense that Dopa left. There was a gap in the defense, and they exploited that to the max. Even without the Mino of Spirit losing all of his HP, the gap would still be there. That is not what created the gap.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, the gap was just the fact that he was there on his own, right? And you actually often do sort of see a couple of members, usually in that little town, I guess, if that's what you want to call it. But that was not the setup for DOPAMINE, and so that was taken advantage of pretty quickly. Yeah, and 9 out of 9 shots penned. Very good stuff from the VZ55. And the numbers just not quite being put up there, unfortunately, for DOPAMINE. So, got to be feeling a little bit disappointed by how things are going tonight. I mean, this ties into the conversation we were having earlier as well. We were saying, like, well, does OPUR actually want to win this necessarily? Because it would mean that they will play against W. Well, it seems like they don't care. Because they're kind of clearing house.
It does look like they're both playing pretty standard, at the very least. So they both probably are trying to win, but I don't think they're revealing anything they've had in their back pockets in terms of strats, right? OPUR played the same defense on Tundra. They played the same attack on Tundra. They didn't change their lineups. They didn't really change their openings. They just did the same thing, and that's fine. Like, you're recycling what you've used before, completely fine in a match like this. I mean, it's completely different than picking, 7 Irish Panzer wagons and trying to YOLO through the middle.
True. Yeah, a little bit more thinking required. DOPAMINE have got a lot of thinking to do here, headed on to Muravanka. I mean, defensive side victory is going to be required. Not the easiest of tasks, of course. Have we even seen a defensive win today? I'm sure we have. Would have been probably against Bricked. Maybe I'm mistaken. Either way, doesn't really matter at this point in time. It's time for us to head on to Muro and hope for the best for DOPAMINE. But yeah, I have to say, I'm kind of getting the sense that OPUR is going to kind of run through the rest of this series. But not only the rest of this series, but actually also the rest of this tournament. Like they are clearly looking like the strongest team,
So far, yeah.
which is what you had led me to believe anyway. But
Mhm. I mean,
like
that's the
they're also
takeaway from today, right?
displaying that.
I mean, arguably they have the easier opponents, though. If you want to look at it that way, but still,
Yeah, I guess that's fair.
I mean, depends. Though. I mean, I think that they had the easier APAC opponents.
Yeah,
Between the
I would
NA
say so.
teams, you could say Burba and Dopa favor Burbo slightly. But still, they're looking really just solid, like all around
Mhm.
gaming.
Indeed, they are. And here we go into what could potentially be the final round. Dopamine is going to be hoping that they can avoid that possibility. They got a single bat chat with a CS63. Meanwhile, it's just a single bat chat for OPUR. So a little bit more on the external sides of the maps for Dopamine than what there is for OPUR. But I think that's going to be okay. OPUR will really try to have all of their eggs in one basket, probably over toward the one flag. Once again, hefty push into the forest from Dopamine on the defense.
We see this a lot, right, on the defensive mirror. Some aggression towards the forest. Not all as successful, but here they will find not very much. I mean, Spirit is taking a lot of ground rather quickly, but he has to be careful though, because there is a bit of a trap on the A line, which is a poor adjusting and leaving an Eskunk and a bad shot there. Now that is going to be really hard for anybody to dig out.
Orchek is just going to move back away from the one flag for the moment. No real heavy commitment being made by OPUR just yet. I'm just waiting to see if Dopamine's going to give them anything. And to be fair, that might not be the worst of shouts considering what happened on Tundra.
I agree, but Dopa are very slow here though, like super slow. I'm a bit worried because they did give Dopamine the entire map in returns for this, so they will somehow have to either be able to push through or start the cap. It's not going to be that easy.
A little bit of bleed there going back and forth. Ketsai taking one shot for the one in response onto Dark. Yeah, I mean, actually, I would almost argue this has been the slowest round of the day so far. It's really just jostling for position, kind of feeling each other out.
Ooh, DJ though in a bit of trouble in the middle of the map there, and that mouse taking damage. Not sure which angles I have
Starting to
shots on
become
him,
a
but
problem.
like it's really looking rough for Oppo right now.
Definitely. And it doesn't look like DJ has like been able to get safer. Oh, okay. Definitely hasn't. So yeah, you're essentially playing a 6-on-7 now. So what's the response from OPUR? Piotrix in the bat chat is trying to work his way along the coastline. They're going to try and take a bit of control back away from the forest, but it's probably a bit too late at this point, having already lost a tank.
I mean, they do get away unscathed though, completely.
Yeah, which is, well, exactly what you want when you're on the defense.
Send the repressure the forest though. If they could find an engagement here before the rest of the team arrives, they could find something. But you can see the rotation across the F line, right? You see the double IS-7 coming in for the side of Dopa. The moment that they arrive, this fight becomes increasingly hard, in my opinion, and increasingly hard to win as well. Dark now getting spotted out as well. Orchek is backing off a little bit. Vishek is backing off as well, or trying to back off. But they can't continue running. I mean, they're still attacking.
We've got 4 minutes, so there's a bit of time there available, but I mean, it kind of felt like a bit of a nothing attack so far from OPUR. Like, everything that they've done, they haven't really like committed to necessarily, and it's ultimately resulted in like a bit of bleed and and then a tank going down. But what have they achieved for all of that? Like, they haven't got really much map control. They haven't got any cap pressure. They haven't really even done any damage to Dopamine. Like, it's like kind of like they haven't really done anything on this attack so far.
No, the attack has been pretty useless. I can already tell you, by the way, if you want a funny note, that DJ got Amarakt.
Yeah, I thought so because he was on like 1k HP.
Here comes the repush though. Piotrik's facing off against Spurdy. He's going to be winning that 1v1. It's not all over here, as we can see. Piotrix is going to be finishing off Spirit now. He's going to be on a full reload, but he does have that S-Kunk in support who will be chewing through CSs, but in return though, they're losing T-Sec in that big I-7. He may be able to get Nexus before that though, but that is a question as well. Big HE there from Rishek on towards the side of Ferret in the CS. They do lose T-Sec as expected, but the HP has actually completely evened out between these two again. But now we can see 3 repush on the 3 line. The S-Kunk there, a forward by himself, is going to get pushed upon by the E5, by the S-Kunk. Nobody really to support for that.
Yeah, Ferret's going to go down in a matter of seconds. Pan's Fury in that Super Conk, full HP as well. Sniping from the Lighthouse position. Okay. Interesting to see how the rest of this one does play out. You really have to see Pan's Fury in that Super Conk being able to get involved in this fight, right? You can't play the sniper role anymore when you're the tank that has the HP to play with. He has to kind of get involved and is doing a good job of that already. He's pushing his way forward.
He has to do that at this point, right? Like you said, he
2 minutes.
He can no longer beat a sniper tank here because he only has 2 minutes. He's now going to be readjusting to try and take E1 in the S-Kung. So they will probably try OPUR at this moment in time to play over the cap, to play from that position on. Because he catch side readjusting in the cap as well. I like what he's doing here. He's going to get himself in a rather cool position against this S-Kunk of PM. I don't think PM expected this, but it's going to be an easy farm for Ketsai.
That said, I am still a little bit concerned about that timer. I mean, 1 minute and 40 seconds is not a huge amount. You still got a Super Conk on the other side of the map in the forest. It's going to take a long time to get into this fight, so you're essentially fighting 5 on 4 right now. Batchat has come across with a full clip loaded, though. Piotrix, this next clip could be absolutely massive, but he has to be very careful with only 630 HP to play with. Dark down early. Dopamine, are they finding a way to grasp a defeat from the jaws of victory? It certainly seems that way at the moment. OPUR fighting hard to try to find themselves a win. The shots are going back and forth. The damage, I don't know if it's quite enough just yet for OPUR with 1 minute left on the clock. Ketsai needs to make sure he gets this next shot through. Piotrix finished off 1. And PM down to a 1-shot now as well with just under 1 minute to go. This is definitely winnable for both teams.
Yeah, they need to get Panther Fury and mainly Rishek at this point in the game. They also need to start triple capping. Panther Fury with a shot on the move, shuts down Blur. PM now, the last one standing in front of this cap, and Nexus, the sole survivor of this return fight from OPUR, and they actually have it. 22 seconds left. I don't think anybody really saw this coming after losing DJ initially so early on, but yet again, though, an unfavorable situation being turned around in the favor of OPUR.
Yeah, I mean, that was crazy. That was actually insane. Really well done. And it sort of started with that fight on the 0 line. We'll talk about that in just a second because obviously Nexus is still trying to make something happen here, but we all know that's not going to happen, and that is in the end a 4-1 for OPUR. What a turnaround on the attacking side of Muro. That was something else. Dopamine not going to be too pleased to see that one. They'll have to go back to the drawing board and figure things out there. But yeah, I mean, man, that I think you could say was a 6-on-7. That was a 6v7 they won.
They even got to disengage from the forest. They didn't really need to push 0 line. It was really weird. They tried to go for that play on 0 line. Spirit lost his 1v1 against the Batchat. So he got owned for that. And then the CS, he can't fight an S-Kung.
Yeah, that's it's crazy that they survived with 5 tanks available as well. Like,
yeah,
those Super Conks just farmed, didn't they? And actually, I got to say, Piotrix, really, really nice round in the Batchat as well. The first clip was really impactful, getting rid of the CS, and then the second clip as well. It felt like to me we didn't really get to see exactly his POV of those shots, but I thought they kind of went where they needed to. It seemed like he was able to connect when he needed to. And pretty good target selection as well, kind of cleaning up some of the low HP tanks. So overall, really quite solid stuff from OPUR. And, it obviously you already had a lot of faith in this team, you and the guys, the analysts. And I tend to have like this inherent, like almost bias towards the EU teams. Like I have in my mind, like EU is good. NA is like in the middle, APAC is at the bottom in terms of like a power ranking. So I already had like, yeah, look, OPUR looks pretty good in theory, but after seeing it, yeah, I mean, I got to say, well, early days, but I'm probably calling them to win tomorrow.
Yeah.
So we'll have to see.
You,
Um,
I think I put
yeah,
a
I
poor
guess
up there as well, and then you have the two American teams and W. I think W is about even to the two NA teams.
sure. Yeah. All right. Well, look, at this point, obviously there's a lot of conversation to be had, but luckily we've got someone else to do that for us. It's the analyst. Take it away.
Well, thanks a lot, guys. And Toxic, this is it for today for the group stage. And we have 4 teams left. Like we mentioned earlier, 2 EU teams, 2 NA teams. And that last match, OPUR actually taking the victory over Dopamine. It was
yes.
not the greatest performance from their side, to be fair. I think they didn't play their A game, but after all, they didn't need to.
I mean, you could also argue that they were maybe already kind of saving up some strats for tomorrow. Because, I mean, to be fair, Ducky already mentioned it. The other 3 teams, one could argue, have about the same power level, and OPUR is just a step above that. So for OPUR, it doesn't really matter whom they face. However, tomorrow the matches are really important. We will not be having a lower bracket this time, so it's do or die for all of these teams. They have to win their matches to advance, and only the first place gets anything out of this, which is a wildcard for the WCI tournament in November. Second place, might as well be last place. It doesn't really matter.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, 2 NA teams facing each other tomorrow, Poor versus W on the other part of the semifinals. We probably expected like each EU teams to face an NA one because we expected W to end up first in their group. But at the end of the day, like you mentioned, that doesn't really matter. You have to beat everyone tomorrow to actually get to the grand finals and take it because there's only one spot, one extra one to take with this wildcard tournament to get to China to play the WCI later in this year in November. Talking back about that last match, au poor against Dopamine, we can probably have a look at what happened exactly with the replays as we were starting on mines. And Opur, they went for a very standard attack, trying to push around the hill straight, but Dopamine, they had a great lineup to play against it.
I mean, you say this is a standard strat, but usually when you do this, you want to go like towards where the e5s are. I feel like
Mm.
this is something we rarely see,
Mm-hmm.
at least in the past few tournaments. So it might either be Opur saying, okay, we don't really care, we just want to try it out. Or maybe this worked in a scrim once, and if it works once, it always works. The good old random mentality. However, Dopa was ready for it. They defended this really well. It took a while for Opur to actually kill Blur in that position. And at that point, Opur doesn't really have the HP, so Dopa just repushes and closes the round.
Yeah, I mean, pretty easy for the side of Dopamine. They just had to hold their positions and get the kills done. From the side of Opur, this is an all-in tactic, and well, it didn't work out because the NA team had a good setup for it. But afterwards, you have to say that Opur, they went for something standard too, and Dopamine, they didn't have the answer. They tried some pretty cool opening with 5CS. Uh, Potentially having some damage on the guys going into the 1-2 lines, but that was definitely not enough because as you can see later on, having 5 CSs in your team, this is really hard to make a play.
Yeah, I don't really know what to think of these 5 CSs.
Mm.
Because, yes, they are fast.
Mm.
Yes, they have great DPM. But that's about it. They don't have armor, they don't have HP. And you can't really make a play if you neither have armor nor HP. And you saw those 3 CSs they pushed in. And Paddington with a bit of funky driving there, going down before he even arrives. And at that point, you're playing versus an E5 and another E5 in the background with 2 CSs. That's not going to work out.
Honestly expected something pretty special, like pushing down the tree line all the way with like 3 to 4 CSs or so, but they had a different idea in mind. And then on Tundra, I think that Dopamine, they had a shot at it, but at the same time, the way they were spread and actually not focusing enough around the base 2, there is an easy call from the side of Opur to just push down the river and take down the guy capping, and you could see that Dopamine, they never took enough control around the base 2 to make it work.
I also gotta say, I love the way that OPUR played this. They went to H3 with 2 tanks and pushed the guy in the cap. And whilst usually a lot of teams will throw all of their tanks there, OPUR had 1 tank at J1, 1 tank at G1, one
Mm.
tank at like G2. So from 3 different positions, they are covering this push and basically not allowing Dopamine to peek from above and really punish it. So it's really just a 2v1 that you are creating, whilst every peak that Dopa will try to get will be punished. So really great stuff from OPUR.
Definitely next up we had Dopamine on the defense, OPUR on the attack, and OPUR, as they are used to do it, going for a very slow and methodical attack, and Spirits with his Minotauro having an interesting play, an interesting idea of pushing forward, but the Polish players of OPUR actually finishing hard for hits, dropping to a one shot, and next up, finding the good push, finding the isolated tank to take him down, Dark in the 60 TP. Honestly, this OPUR team, they didn't have to play their A game, but I think that's overall they still kept their serious the entire match, didn't underestimate what Dopamine was capable of, and at the end of the day had a good performance.
And I just want to highlight something that our beautiful caster said.
Hmm.
These VZs, whilst they might not be the best tanks in 77 to pick, if they do work, they make these beautiful moments where, you have Spirit trading his HP for information. Then you have the VZs pushing onto the 60 TP, basically just free clipping him out. So these are really the scenarios why you have the VZs in our team.
And to end on that match, Toxic, we expected Dopamine to take that one, because that was very weird to not see bad opening from the side of OPUR, playing 6v7, because they didn't take any control whatsoever and lost the mouse in the middle of the map. But that's a push from Dopamine, actually unnecessary. They were on the defense, and the trap working out for OPUR, because you had the Bachat of Piotrix actually here ready to help out Rishak if he would get pushed. So at the end of the day, you'll see they managed to, even though they only 1.5 minutes left to rotate completely over the base one, forced Dopamine to push out one last time and made it in the cap.
I mean, great way to play this out. They dropped a tank at the start. Maybe they were trying to compensate for the match versus APEC, where they had a 6v7, and they wanted to just make one 6v7 as well. But they managed to actually get back into the game. Maybe also a miss push there on the 0 line from Dopa.
Yeah.
I feel like that was not really needed. But great stuff from OPUR, playing in the end game and actually closing out the game in a beautiful fashion.
Yeah, let's say that Dopamine helped them to get the victory there. But anyway, Dopamine is not out. We mentioned it beforehand. Those matches were only for seeding. We'll get to see them again tomorrow, and they will be facing Biology, another team from NA. On the other side, for the other semifinal, we'll have both EU teams a rematch from our finals of the losers bracket of the last World 7 tournament. We had OPUR against W, and I'm very certain OPUR is seeking for revenge there.
Yeah, they were probably not so happy with how the last face-off went. And I mean, you could say it doesn't really matter because one of them got second place, one of them got third place, so they both get to show up in the wildcard tournament. But then again, OPUR probably wants to get the first place in the VOD 7 already to not have to play this wildcard tournament. So maybe they are just, maybe a bit mad even at W for having to play this tournament. And they will probably bring their wrath on the battlefield tomorrow.
Well, yes, since we have no APAC team left in the tournament, we'll be starting a bit later tomorrow. Toxic, instead of 2 p.m. CET, it's going to be 4 p.m. CET, so 2 hours later, and we'll likely start with the semifinals involving both EU teams to give a bit more time to the NA teams. That's going to be tomorrow. The 3 final matches, the semifinals, the grand final, who is going to take it, who is going to get the chance to challenge the other teams already qualified in the WCI in China later in November. We will find out tomorrow. Toxic, do you have anything to tell to the viewers before we leave it to Daki, as I think we're hosting him?
Well, as you already mentioned, we will be hosting Ducky, so if you guys haven't finished your jobs, make sure to stay on there and finish them. Tomorrow, we will be having the Streamline 2D style as a drop, so make sure to tune in tomorrow as well. But that's about it for me. I wish you guys a beautiful evening. Thanks for being here and watching this tournament along with us. I'll leave the last words to you, Insane. Take it.
Yeah, let's find out who is going to make it to China tomorrow. And for the time being, we wish you a great evening.